Hi! I'm Melissa.
I'm Chloe.
This is my cousin. We may or may not look similar to one another. A tad. So anyway, here is another video in the series, and today we're going to talk about self-image. Yay! This series is inspired in the wake of JongHyun's death. And I think a lot of, Chloe is not like a K-pop, K-drama person. It's just me all by myself. It's okay. But we're going to talk about generally some things, but I'll like lay down some info from the limited knowledge that I have, because I'm really not an expert. I don't live in Korea or anything. But there's like this, in Korea, like idols, K-pop idols, and like actors are held to, especially the K-pop idols, they're held to like this standard that is really, really high, which is a good thing. Like, you know, like your role models, the people that you support and that are like, you know, kind of almost like have like a major voice in your culture in society should be someone to look up to, right? Like, you don't want them to be like total scumbags. Understandable. You want them to value the things that your society values and like show that. But it seems from the outside looking in that they're kind of held to this ridiculous standard. Like, that's not necessarily achievable realistically. It's not even that. If you were allowed to make mistakes, okay, fine. But it seems like anytime a mistake is made, it's like blown completely out of proportion and it'll like ruin your career. Like a scandal. And I feel like they, like when they, this is just conjecture, right? Like, this is just what I imagine in my head. Like, when they sign their contracts with like the record companies, they like have a list of rules, and one of them is like you can't date until you're 30. Like, or if you do, it has to be in secret, and like you never confirm that you're dating anyone ever because like your fans need to love you. And I'm just like, what? Sorry, that's a little bit kind of kidding, but possibly real. Don't know. But anyway, yeah, the netizens. I now have this like concept in my mind that netizens, which are literally just citizens of the internet, right? They're just on there all the time. I have this notion in my mind that netizens are like the nemesis. They're like evil. They always perpetuate evil, which is not true. Sorry. It's not true, but I just have this notion in my, like, I associate. Now when I think of netizens, it's like the like that guy. So, because it seems like every time there's some scandal, it's the netizens are like talking trash out the wazoo. Like, like, can y'all shut your mouth? / your keyboard. Just chill. Everybody talks about, I don't know. I'm rambling. This is what happens. I just won't shut up. So, I'm going to edit a bunch of this out. Anyway, so that happens all the time. Like, back to the point, which is that Korea has like this ridiculous standard.
So for me, I'm in my early 20s, so that just has a lot of like effect on me, and so I'm in a place where I'm not a teenager anymore, and I also have a lot more freedom than I did when I was a teenager, but so now I'm like in this period where I have the freedom to learn about myself and to learn about like who I've been created to be. So I have learned to give myself a lot of grace and like making mistakes, but also like I seek others to hold me accountable just for things like if I do something wrong and I'm not willing to acknowledge the fact that it was wrong, then somebody else needs to come in and like bring a little bit more light to the situation. But like, you know, I am not in a relationship at all with anybody, so I have the opportunity to learn about myself as a single person, like as somebody who is not tied down to anybody necessarily in a relationship. Not that you can't learn about yourself in a relationship, because I think that they're really great opportunities to learn about people through like serious relationships. But like I have the opportunity, if I wanted to explore something about myself, like I can. You know, I have the opportunity to learn about the little niches that make me who I am, and also to decide like whether or not like I want to grow in those, or whether or not those are things that I need to learn how to control. So for example, like I don't necessarily have a filter when I speak. So, and that can be really funny, but that can also be really, really damaging, because I can say things that are really funny, but I can also say things that hurt people, and that it's not intentional at all. You know, I don't really try to intentionally hurt people, but it definitely comes out that way. So that would be learning how to control my speech, and being really intentional with my words would be something that I really need to grow in. And acknowledging that about myself is a good place to start with identity. And when I do slip up, like I cannot twist my self-image and say, you know, I'm such a horrible person, even though I do really feel bad about myself when that happens. But I can choose to remember that like there's grace for me, and that it's a learning opportunity, and I'm young enough, you know, where I can learn that. And not that, you know, I don't really necessarily think the age has anything to do with it. I think it just has an attitude, you know, it's an attitude that you decide to adopt, that you're going to learn about yourself, and that you're going to give yourself grace, and that you're still a person who makes mistakes too. So
I like it. I think my psychology background is rearing its ugly head. I agree. I think we have to be intentional. Like, I think that sometimes we're not intentional enough. We just like are just completely ruled by our emotions, and we never use our brain. Sometimes your emotions can lead you to a place that you don't need to be, and not to say that your emotions are not like valid, because you feel those things for a reason. But sometimes you can halt them in their tracks. You have control over some of that, like in how you perceive things and how you intentionally think about things. Interesting stuff. But blast. I forgot. I had two thoughts based off of what you said. Oh, the other thought, which is the psychology part two. Like, as I'm old. And having been through a lot of life, and having this like background knowledge in like how the brain develops and things like that, like we really do go through like developmental like changes in our minds that have a direct like link to our emotions and like our perception of ourselves in the world. So I think it's a lot harder for younger people, like in adolescence, in your teenage years, to sometimes like get out of like this, like it's such a narrow like field of view, because you take in a lot of what other people say, and that's all you can see. But really, some science for you: your frontal lobe does not stop growing until you're 25. Your epiphyseal plates in your legs and stuff don't fuse until you're like 21, 25. Something like, it depends. But seriously, that's a thing. You're still growing. Mm-hmm. Don't like squish yourself into this thing. Like, let yourself have room, have some grace for yourself to grow and mature and learn and better yourself. And nobody's perfect, you guys. Okay, so ramble. Any thoughts?
I think that's really good. I would also just like touch on, so I know that I said something about like a more negative thing about me, but I also like, and being grounded, like you learn to focus also on the positive things. And so getting to learn like the really positive niches about yourself that like make you who you are. And I think that, so I like to reflect a lot, which is sometimes good and sometimes bad, but I reflect a lot on the past and like things that I've done and like things that have shaped me. And so like I learned to look at those, and I think that like throughout the process of life and throughout just growing, like sometimes I've chosen to diminish even really positive things about me. So now I'm in a place where I'm like learning about those things, and I'm like choosing to enhance those two. And so like choosing to just take things one at a time and choosing to grow in them too. So like growing in the positive things and learning from the negative things too. And so she said something about like having grace towards yourself and also having grace towards others. And I think that that's like a huge thing too, especially like if we have a standard for ourselves, then we definitely have a standard for others. And so like as we choose to have grace for ourselves, like we should also recognize and value other people in the same way that we choose to value ourselves. And so if we value ourselves and we value ourselves in the light of Christ, and like we should also choose to value others that way, and to recognize that they're also human and they also make mistakes. They also have those little niches and quirks about themselves that they're also trying to navigate and figure out. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We all kind of need to like do some self-reflection and find out who we are and be willing to test ourselves and try new things and then learn from mistakes and kind of like grow. And then also like in that we are not always like, even though we self-reflect, we're not always like fully aware of like how we're behaving or how that affects other people or the impact it might have. So then also allowing others to kind of guide us when we need it, but not to the point that like if anyone's being malicious, that they take control, but just have someone that you trust who can be that kind of like mirror for you and be like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Like someone that knows your values and what kind of person you want to be, share those thoughts and that dream with somebody and like have them be your accountability partner. Accountability buddies. Chloe and I are Christians, and so I would say in the Christian faith, our self-image is grounded, as she was saying, she kept using the word grounded. It's like grounded, rooted in our identity in Christ and how God views us as like his wonderful creations and people that he's pursuing and loving. And so I think that's super helpful and comforting and a way to stay grounded, because it's not for us, while we have like our thoughts about ourselves and our individual like personalities and things that we're pursuing and trying and growing in, at the end of the day, to know who you are, like baseline, like I am a child of God, I am a creation of God, I am loved by him, and he created me specifically with a purpose, with everything that there is about me, my personality, my hair color, my eye color, my body type, the way that I speak, everything about me like has a purpose in creating who I am. What am I saying? Right. So to have that is like really helpful in kind of like comforting yourself, like whenever you get down on yourself, like, because I know that God loves me how I am, and having that, I will try to continue to pursue him and grace towards myself and towards others. And yeah, any thoughts?
I think that's really good.